3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? Dan here, Crypto Capital Venture, October 11th, 2018. I hope you're doing well. In this video, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and its massive move to the south that it made last night, and Litecoin as well. We actually hit some really important key targets that we talked about back on October 2nd. So really no surprises here, and all is good as of right now. Let's talk about that in this video. Let's jump right in. So we're going to start on Bitcoin actually. Usually we start on the weekly and work in. Now we're going to start on the 4 hour because I really just want to dive into the move that Bitcoin had last night. And let's start with a video that we just talked about from October 2nd. Let's take a quick look. And this is what I'm watching mainly on the shorter time frame, just to kind of get an idea of what direction Bitcoin is going to move. So we see this wedge that we're in right now with Bitcoin. And basically, it's just a series of higher highs, right, and higher lows. If support doesn't hold at the bottom of this trend line, right, our target for a breakdown would be out of this long-term trend line that we're in for this this current triangle that we're in, symmetrical triangle. So breaking that could prove kind of disastrous for Bitcoin, because you can see that target for that breakdown is right at that $6,000 mark, which everybody in the space is saying Bitcoin is no way going to break that $6,000 mark. So let's take a real quick look in context to that video, what has happened. So when we did the video, it was right back here, October 2nd, and you can see we've kind of moved up in this wedge, and then we finally did have our break below the bottom of this wedge, and here's our target line. You can see this target line in orange. I'll make it a little bigger. So there's that orange target line, and you can see we wicked right below it, and then we kind of came back up a little bit, and we've had some 4 hour closes really within the target range. And that target range is the height from the bottom of the wedge to the top of the wedge right there. So it's this height right here, and then that's our target. And we talked about this target, and then breaking that target, approaching that $6,000 area for Bitcoin, which was incredibly important to stay above if this type of scenario happened. So this scenario did happen. Now, what's really interesting to see is we can pivot over to a different 4 hour chart, a little bit zoomed out. You can see this bottom trend line, this long-term trend line, which we're going to look at in a second on the daily chart. You can see we kind of found some support there, which is really good to see. So it's kind of forming a new higher low on Bitcoin in this long-term trend line. And this trend line goes back to, I believe, July. Let me see, get this out of the way. So this goes back to June, mid-June. And you can see right now we're forming a higher low. So if you know me in terms of accumulation, this target in this wedge that we were in, this target on the downside, right? This target that we hit really nicely is my first area of accumulation, especially if there tends to look like there's some support there, which there has been in the last day since this happened. So when I say accumulation, this is my softer accumulation area because we're still not out of the woods. And everybody knows I'm keenly awaiting a possible break below the $6,000 area. That's my heavier buy zone. And for that, what we're keeping an eye on is this bigger triangle. So it's kind of like we have these smaller time frame patterns within these larger patterns, and we did a video on this last week. So that first smaller time frame pattern was something to look out for on the short term, and we did. We kept an eye on this. We got our break below. We hit our target, and now it's kind of like, all right, let's move to the daily chart, and then let's look at this longer term symmetrical triangle, which actually has this bottom trend line that we just looked at, right? That has these higher lows in it. So that's what we're looking at now. This is what I'm looking at right now. And there's two things happening. Obviously, we have the bottom trend line in this symmetrical triangle, but more importantly, below that, again, is this long-term $6,000 area of support right here that Bitcoin has to hold above. And so my first thing I'm looking for, if this downtrend continues, right? If we don't get full support here and bounce back up, the first thing I'm looking for, besides just breaking the bottom of this orange symmetrical triangle, is I want to see what happens at 6,000. I want to see if we get a wick to 6,000. I want to see if we close above 6,000. If we go down a little bit more, we're only $280 away from 6,000 right now. So right now is like something to be very careful of. I tend to believe if we get a break below the $6,000 mark, this next target, which is the top to bottom of the symmetrical triangle, is in play in my opinion. Do I think we're going to go all the way down to $4,000? I don't know. I'm not here to predict that, but that target is well in play, especially in a scenario where everybody, most everybody in the market is looking at $6,000. I see tweets that people are just like, we are not breaking $6,000. It's not happening. Accumulate. So if we break $6,000, that mental aspect comes into the market where we might see some capitulation. We might see some crazy dips in the market. It could be something like over here, what we had back in February, and we had some crazy, a nice long wick down to hit 6,000. Could something like that happen where we have a nice long wick hitting 4,000? Absolutely. It's not out of the question. That's kind of what my heavy accumulation area is for. Really, anything below $5,500. You've heard me talk about that for months now on this channel. So that's kind of where we are right now. I thought it was important not to talk about the downside, but to talk about the support areas that we have right now. And if you see in this video how we tracked from the shorter term targets in this wedge, and it pivots over to this daily chart, you can see things are not looking that bad as of right now. I know the market's down, but things are still in check, right? All we did is formed a higher low in this symmetrical triangle, which we've been tracking on this triangle. So how does that translate into Litecoin? So Litecoin, same thing. Litecoin, we were tracking a very similar wedge, which back on October 2nd, which was that breakout, right? Below the wedge, we got on Litecoin, we got a breakout, and then we talked about revisiting the top of the wedge, right? To see if we can break through it. We always look for that revisit. It's not like once you break through, you're going to hit that target like we did last night in this Bitcoin wedge. You always want to look for some type of sideways trading or a revisit to the bottom trend line. So Litecoin kind of had that. It had that sideways trading action going on, but it eventually did, as of yesterday, along with Bitcoin going down. Litecoin hit its target, which is the top of the wedge to the bottom. And we talked about this target the other day, and it was right around $52, I think, maybe even $50 the other day, and we literally wicked down to around $51. So again, Litecoin hitting its targets. One thing I want to point out on Litecoin, now that we might have stabilized, maybe we get some consolidation, sideways trading, support. One thing I want to point out to look for is on the daily chart on Litecoin, we might have nice little reverse head and shoulders forming here in Litecoin right now with a possible right shoulder forming if we can get some bullish action, some momentum on the upside, and actually maybe approach the downward sloping neckline, which right now that resistance is right around $63. And I find that $63 area pretty interesting, mainly because right now that's kind of right around where the bottom trend line is. So I could certainly see some resistance here for Litecoin if it were to approach that area again. But if we get a breakthrough this neckline, right, that area, if we get a breakthrough, Bitcoin obviously will probably be performing well in that scenario, and a breakthrough would prove very bullish for Litecoin and could possibly be the beginning of the story that might be told for the true reversal in this long-term downtrend. As always, we want to see if that support holds at that neckline. But yeah, I mean, in terms of how far we are away from that area, let's take a look. Right now, we're around $52. So that neckline, we still have another 21% to go before we test those areas. We all know how quick things can change. But really, right now, I think all is good in terms of where we are. Nothing crazy has happened. It was kind of a bad night last night as we dipped down. It's a pretty large red candle. But like I said, it just formed a new higher low on Bitcoin. Right now, we have some support. Let's see if it stays at these key prices. Time will tell. Let me know how you're making out there. I'm having fun watching this. I really am. And I'm ready. Are you ready? It's all about preparation. Appreciate you. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I would love to have you as part of the channel. As always, I will see you in the next video, and God bless.